Right. I think once you name the guitar, it goes into the never sell pile, you know, because it becomes personal at that point.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Kylie Olsson, and I have a fantastic guest for you in this episode of Life in Six Strings. But before he gets here, I kind of thought to myself, why not just explain a little bit about the series if you've just stumbled across it and you're wondering what it's all about. So back in April, I decided to teach myself how to play guitar. Now I'm a music journalist and TV presenter, and I've interviewed a lot of fantastic players over the years, but always had this secret ambition to learn how to play. So I finally had the time in April, like all of us, and thought to myself, well, now is the time. So that's basically what I did. I started to teach myself how to play, and then thought, why not turn this into a YouTube series and get some of my friends on the show and chat to them about this machine, the essence behind it, and the player. And talking of players, I've had some pretty impressive ones, from Joe Bonamassa to Rob Caggiano, Doug Aldridge, Bernie Marsden, and I've still got a load more coming up very soon. So please subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out, because like I said, there's some great names coming up very soon. So all you have to do is click the link below and voila, you have subscribed. So guests, my guest is here now. Not only is he a phenomenal player, but he's also a great guy. And I've interviewed him a few times now at various festivals. One in particular was when he was headlining Download Festival with his band Blackstone Cherry. So please welcome, all the way from Kentucky, Mr. Ben Wells. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. It's a bit weird seeing you like this rather than not being in a wet field with warm
Yes.
beer and huge crowds, because we normally see each other at festivals, don't we?
I know. And I mean, honestly, I guess it's like two-sided. Like we totally want to be in person with people and be personable, but I guess thank God for technology too, otherwise we wouldn't even have the opportunity to do this. But yeah, I would much rather be at a festival right now.
I know, yeah, me too, to be quite honest with you. And I never thought I'd say that. So how have you been?
Very good. It's been like an adjustment on everybody that's used to being on the road a lot. Just being home for this amount of time and not playing live music was totally bizarre. So we're all just adjusting to it and trying to find any silver lining that we can, through this time.
Sure. So I guess we'll start right at the beginning with your guitar, and I kind of want to ask you, like, what was the thing that sent you on this path? Like, what drew you to the guitar rather than any other instrument?
So it's odd because he's not known as like a guitar player, but my main inspiration of all time is Elvis Presley.
Okay.
That was my thing it got me into music. It got me into wanting to perform. And that's my main deal. And it's kind of odd because, he's known as more of a singer-entertainer than a guitar player. But just seeing those early images, I grew up watching his movies when I was a little kid. And just seeing him was like, oh, my gosh, I want to do that, Then as I got a little older and started to, like, pick up the guitar and get more into, like, guitar playing and rock music and things like that, Aerosmith was the band that threw it over the edge for me, that made me want to, play in a band and play rock and roll. Joe Perry and Brad Whitford are two of my favorite guitar players out there. So I would say between Elvis and Aerosmith, you combine those both, that's what really catapulted me and wanted to be involved in music.
So how old were you when you started playing then?
So I got my first guitar when I was probably in the third grade, and I think that was probably 6 or 7 years old maybe. And then I played it for a while. I still have it. It was a little Dixon acoustic guitar my parents got me for Christmas.
You still have it?
I still have it. It's awesome. And so that was my first guitar.
Have you ever played it on a record?
No, because, it's not like the best quality, And now, like, the strings are, like, really high off the neck because it's just, I've had it for so many years. But I'll never get rid of it just because that was the one that really started it, And then, so I played for a while, and then I kind of stopped for a minute because I went through the thing that every guitar player does where, especially as a kid, you play and you practice and your fingers start to hurt and you're like, well, this isn't fun, So I guess a couple years after that, after I put it down, I got into it again and I got more serious. Once I realized that, I wasn't really into sports so much, you know what I mean? I mean, I loved baseball, but, I wasn't, school was like, whatever, So guitar, I confided in the guitar, and that's what I really dedicated myself to every single day. A little bit, probably 3 or 4 years after I got my first one. Then I really started to like practice and try to learn songs. I would listen to CDs and cassette tapes and try to figure out what the riff was,
Have you got a family that play instruments and stuff like that? Was there anyone that you could play with and jam and stuff, or were you kind of on your own?
It's really bizarre. Like everybody in my family, nobody really was really, a big musician, My sister and I grew up doing like public theater stuff at a local theater here. So that's where like my love for entertaining goes, I think. But as far as the guitar, there wasn't anybody in my family really that I could, bounce off of or play with, I just kind of found it on my own. Thankfully, then, I found the other guys in the band that's what really, started the whole thing.
Yeah, because how old were you when you guys met then?
So I was 15 years old when we started the band, and that was in 2001.
Right.
And I was the youngest. It was on Chris's birthday. So Chris had just turned 16, and they were having a party down there and at our practice house, and that's where I met them. And then we literally met on June 3rd, 2001, and on June 4th, we had our first practice.
Oh my God, that's crazy, isn't it?
It is.
As well, that you guys live in the same town that you grew up in. You're still, mates, and you've been friends for so long, and then you're in this band. I mean, it's unheard of, isn't it?
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't even realize this. I did an interview the other day, and somebody brought it up that next year is like our 20th anniversary. And it just doesn't seem like that, because ever since we've started, this has been our lives, Blackstone Cherry and playing music has been what we do, and it's become our family. It's become a huge part of their lives as well. So when somebody says, man, y'all been together for 20 years next year, that's totally bizarre, because it doesn't seem like it's been that long,
No, I can imagine. Well, it's all moving quite quickly, isn't it? Normally, you're not used to, you're feeling left out without the hat on.
I know. I was like, I guess I better put a hat on.
Yeah. No, but I guess you're usually, traveling around the world, playing shows every night, then you're straight in making an album. So I guess it's all go. So then it goes so quickly, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does. And, we've had such a good time doing what we do. And it's been such a dream to live this lifestyle. Even when we were younger, when we weren't even like a professional touring band, it was still a dream to be able to find 3 other guys my age that were so into music and into writing music. And, every day after school, we would go and practice. And, when I was growing up too, before I met them, I had some other friends that played drums or maybe played guitar, but they didn't want to really dedicate themselves to practicing. I was the guy that I wanted to come home and I was like, okay, let's meet at somebody's house and let's write some songs. They wanted to go do other stuff, and fair enough, they were young kids. They wanted to go out and do kid stuff. And I was like, man, I want to write some songs. I want to go play some gigs, And I never thought I would find anybody else my age in our area that was like that. And then, it's totally a God thing how we just kind of came together and in such a living so close, growing up together and all sharing the same dream. So it's pretty amazing.
I guess that's why you're doing it as a profession though, isn't it? And that's what sets, professional musicians apart, is that you live and breathe it, and that's all you want to do, and that's how you become excellent at your craft, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, starting out too, we never treated it as like a pastime or a hobby, everybody says, well, it's good to have like a backup plan and this. And while I do agree with that, for us, there was no backup plan, because we thought if we give ourselves a backup plan, we're leaving room for us to be comfortable and, not put everything we have into the band, So, and I give that advice a lot. I give it hesitantly because I never want some young kid to not have a plan in place, but it's also very important, if you want to do something, if you have a trade or if you love music so bad, then you really have to dedicate yourself to it, Otherwise, it'll just become something you do when you have time. And it's like, you have to make time for what you love.
Yeah, I totally agree with you for sure. So so you mentioned Elvis. So when you're on stage, do you have like a persona or someone that you kind of go to get up on stage and become, Ben from Blackstone Cherry kind of thing?
I mean, there are probably definite things that I'm sure I subconsciously do that, I've watched somebody like Elvis do. I don't have the charisma he did though, because I don't have the jumpsuits, and I don't have, the black leather suit either.
Be sorted. You could easily get yourself a jumpsuit, and I think maybe you should try it for next year when everything starts up again.
If we could start, if somebody could say we'll start touring again first next year, I'll gladly go buy the jumpsuit. That's what it takes,
The jumpsuit. I think it's Halloween. I think I've seen you as Elvis on Instagram. I'm sure.
I have done Elvis before, and I grew up doing Elvis impersonations when I first started playing, like 3rd and 4th grade. My parents had a little jumpsuit made for me, and I wore a black wig, and oh yeah. But for me on stage, people do say, well, usually backstage you're pretty calm and reserved and pretty chilled. When you get on stage though, it's just like a rush. It's not fabricated. It's not put on. It's like you just feel the energy of the music. And then it's when I truly just like come out of that shell and just come to life, And then I come back off stage and I'm quiet.
You are nuts on stage. Like, you are all over the place. It's fantastic to watch. It's infectious. You can't help but move when you watch you on stage. It's great.
Thank you very much. I believe that people, when they come to a show, they want to be entertained, And if you give them that energy, they're going to feed off that energy, I think only the Beatles could get away with standing still. You have to get up there and you have to put on a show. And, it's not even, like I said, it's not even really putting on a show like going, well, I have to jump around. I have to do this. Literally, like if somebody told me, hey, we need you to be still during this performance, it would be so hard for me because I just can't do it. I cannot be still when I get up there. It's just the rush of emotion.
See, because I taught myself how to play guitar during lockdown. So
yeah, I saw that. Congratulations, by the way.
It's been like the best thing I've ever done, and I've always wanted to do it, but never had the time. And it was like, okay, everything's stopped. Now I've got the time. I'm going to give it a go. Screw it. And
right.
I just don't know. Now I really appreciate everything that you guys do, because for one, there's no way I can sing and play at the same time. That just seems impossible. Like to try and get everything moving in the right direction. Right. And also, I don't know how you move. Like, how could you move and play? I mean, could you do that first of all? Is that a natural thing? Or was it something that just kind of after time, you get better at it?
I think it's come with time. I mean, ever since we first started playing, I always like to move around a little bit and be somewhat active. Now, granted, watching our first performances, like from when we first started, I was probably a little bit more reserved and, a little more nervous and shy. And not that I don't get nervous now. I definitely still get butterflies before every single show. But I found that getting up there and just being myself and having a great time and running around and being crazy, that's where I'm more comfortable, And I think over the years of playing, I've just become comfortable with, trying to master the art of playing in time and just a little bit sloppy,
Jimmy Page, though, isn't it? He's
for sure.
Wonderful sloppy,
He is absolutely perfectly sloppy, and people try to recreate that, and they can't recreate that. It's just the way he is, and that's why he's so amazing.
Yeah. So can you remember the first thing that you learned on your guitar? Not like the first thing, but the kind of first thing that you felt like, oh my God, this is amazing.
The first song I learned was the first like real rock song I remember trying to learn was Sweet Emotion.
Right. Okay. So
because it goes back to Aerosmith.
Yeah. So did you learn that just by listening to the record, or was it, I guess, a book? Did they have YouTube tutorials then? I guess they did, didn't they?
They had a few. I took lessons for a short time with a person here in our hometown, and I was kind of hitting a brick wall with them because I would go in there and they were wanting to teach like fundamental things, like let's learn our positioning on the guitar and let's do scales. And I was like, no, I want to learn some riffs. I was like, that's what I want to learn. I don't want to learn all the other stuff. So, eventually, and I probably should have learned a lot of the fundamentals of the guitar, but I wanted to learn. I wanted to go straight into song and learn like Walk This Way, and I wanted to learn Hound Dog, and I wanted to learn all this stuff. So I think I learned the majority of that on my own, trial and error, listening to the song and trying to tune my guitar to how it sounded correctly to them, because then we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have tutorials. It was all just listen and figure it out.
God, I just don't think I'd be able to do it that way.
You could do it.
Starting now that I can just, I have a teacher each week, and I get what you mean about the whole fundamentals thing. I'm at that stage right now where I'm like, I don't want to learn that. I just want to. So what if I have my thumb like this? Does it matter? It's
right. I mean,
like this the whole time. Oh, shut up! I just want to play.
Well, that's the thing too. And sometimes like lessons are great because it's good to learn from somebody that can teach you a lot of great stuff for sure. But then sometimes you'll get a teacher that wants to show you their way of playing, and it doesn't give you the opportunity to maybe develop your own style, So, it kind of goes back to Jimmy Page. Like if somebody had told him, hey, you're playing too sloppy, would we still have the magic of Led Zeppelin? I don't know.
No, we probably wouldn't. You're right.
Yeah.
What do you think your kind of unique style is then? What makes you different to other players?
I don't know. I think with Chris and I both in the band, we grew up together playing guitar together. So we learned a lot together as far as experimenting with different tunings and things like that. Chris and I both will tell you, like, we don't know music theory and we don't know, I can't read sheet music. I can read tablature and I can read chord charts, but I couldn't read sheet music and I still can't, It's just about finding your own place and figuring it out, So with us, with playing different chords and figuring out different ways to play, and like I've played a G before, like this, and somebody will say, "Well, I play a G like this, without my or with one," and it's like, "Well, I've always done it like this." Yeah. See, exactly. See, and I put the bottom one on there. Still, it's technically right, But I think it's just, I don't know what my style would be. I don't know. I call it trial and error, I guess.
I like that. It's funny, because I saw you at Rambling Man Fair and you joined Orman Betts band on stage.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that you were a good player, but when I saw you with them, I was like, oh my God, like seriously.
Thank you.
I thought you sounded incredible. And it was obviously more in the bluesy country field. I mean,
right.
You guys have done a blues cover album, haven't you? I mean, do you enjoy like delving into that side of things?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of who we are as a band. Like we grew up covering a lot of blues stuff. And then, the way the EPs came about is we would do like a couple blues songs every night in our live set. And people would come up to us and say, well, what was that song y'all did? Is that one of y'all's songs? And we'd say, no, man, that's a Muddy Waters song, or that's a Howlin' Wolf or something like that. And they would say, wow, I've never listened to that guy. So it brought up the idea for us. We said, look, people seem to be enjoying this side of the band, the bluesier side. That's a huge part of who we are. Mm-hmm. We said, let's do a couple EPs and pick some of our favorite blues songs, re-record them as if we had written them ourselves, and put a little bit of our style on them. And that came out great. And I think it's really cool that we can expand and do that and show people one of the deepest influences we have, collectively as a group. And then they turn around and go, I've never listened to Muddy Waters. Now I'm listening to his whole catalog. And I'm like, that's where rock and roll started. It all came from the blues.
I totally agree. And it's like job well done as well if you turn fans onto other great artists. And like
sure.
Ones that were like at the root of it all, which I think is incredible. So do you think you'd do another one of those albums?
I'm sure we will. I don't know. Like we've done 2 blues EPs, and we do the EPs in between, like if an album, when we're coming down to the end of an album cycle. So and we're getting ready to go record, because we can go in the studio for like a week and do that because we only do like 5 or 6 songs.
Yeah.
And the songs are already written, because we're covering songs. I don't know if we'll keep it with blues or we might pick another genre or just do a general covers album. We're kind of tossing some different ideas around. So I don't know what we'll do yet.
I think we need to do a country album. I bet you'd be able to pull that one off easily.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't put it past us. We've talked about doing a country thing, a reggae thing, because we love reggae music.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know what we'll do yet. Who knows? You never know with us.
It is true. And obviously you've got your own album out now. Was it Human Condition?
Yes, The Human Condition.
Great album. What
Thank you.
it's all made during lockdown then?
Yeah, we started recording this at the 1st of March.
Right.
And that's when the U.S. start of the pandemic was really starting to take place. We hadn't had the big lockdowns yet, but it was on the news and everybody was kind of getting a little worried. And I remember being in the studio and we were all kind of looking at our phones and seeing what was happening all over the world. And then we were getting emails from management saying, hey, your tour dates probably aren't going to be happening this year. And we were like, wait, what? What is happening? So I think subconsciously we kind of looked at each other while we were in the studio and said, well, we don't know what the rest of this year is going to entail, but we do know that we're going to have an album to show for it. So let's put all of our energy and effort into this because we knew we at least had the album to come out this year. And I think, we put so much emotion and angst and, passion into this project because we thought this might be the only thing we get to release this year, so I'm very proud of us for doing that. And, I think the result is, it's honest. I know everybody says, the new album is their favorite album, but this one really is. And just because of the time that was done and the songs that are on this record, I think is super resonate with me right now.
Because not all of them were written, some of them were written for the previous album, weren't they, or not?
Yeah, some of them, like Ringing in My Head was a song, the first track on the album. We wrote that in 2017, and it was supposed to be on Family Tree, our last album. And for whatever reason, it wasn't. We didn't really finish writing it. We had like the first verse and the chorus and everything, but it just wasn't ready. Fast forward to the start of this year, we were looking at songs to go on the record, and we were like, man, that is a cool song. Let's revisit that. So we reworked it and wrote the second verse to it. But it's eerie because the lyrics on the first verse talk about, this new disease and all this stuff. So it's eerie how it kind of worked out. It makes sense now.
Or something, yeah. And also
Yeah.
the last track on the album as well, that wasn't written during this time. And I think that could be like an anthem for this year, like Keep On Keeping On,
Yeah. Yeah, we've had that song for maybe 10 years. I think 9 or 10 years at least. And it's just one of those songs like, we've had a demo, and we'll put it in our catalog. And then there's a lot of songs like that on this record that we wanted to revisit because we knew they were great songs and we knew that they deserved to be released. Just because they were old doesn't mean they still can't be, released. Sometimes you can get in the habit of saying, oh, we wrote that years ago. But if it's good, it's good. So I'm glad we took a lot of those old ideas and revisited them.
Yeah, and also sometimes you just need a little bit of space from a song anyway, doesn't it?
Sure. Yep.
You can see it with some fresh eyes as well.
Exactly right.
What guitars were you playing on the album?
My main sound was a Gibson Les Paul Classic.
Play all the time, don't you? Pretty much.
Yeah, I play them mostly all the time. This one that I record with, I used to tour with in the beginning, but it was my first ever Les Paul that I got like when I was younger.
Is this the cherry red one?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. So you don't tour with that one anymore?
I don't anymore, just because it was my first ever, real guitar, and it is beat all to hell, but I love it and it sounds great. So I'm always afraid or nervous. I'm not saying I'll never tour with it again because it is like my main deal. But if something was to ever happen to it, I would feel terrible. But I use it as my main recording guitar just because it's special to me.
Oh, I love that. Did you feel like you do have a relationship to guitars? Like, like some people give them names, don't they, and stuff. And it's almost I think when you give a guitar a name, it almost shows that actually it really is part of you. It's like your child or your best friend or something like that.
Right. I think once you name the guitar, it goes into the never sell pile, because it becomes personal at that point.
Yeah.
I do have a few that are named, but you're right. They become a part of you. I mean, it's like you play them every day. You see them all the time, especially when you're on the road. They just you have a relationship with your instrument. And I think that's important. Because it's funny sometimes. Sometimes you can get mad at the instrument and go, if you had a bad show or something, damn it, you failed me tonight. You know what I mean? Even though it's your fault, you played a bad show, but you can blame it on the guitar and then you'll make it up the next time. But it is funny how we have those little relationships with our instruments.